Welcome to the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. In each episode, we're going to bring you insightful interviews and discussions with top restoration industry leaders. We're also going to delve into their business, the strategies that made them successful, and most importantly, the valuable lessons they learned along the way. I'm your host, Clinton James. I'm also the Chief Marketing Officer at Water Restoration Market. We're a digital marketing agency dedicated to helping restoration companies nationwide secure more high-value water jobs. Now, this show, it aims to provide you with the knowledge and tools you need to excel in the restoration industry. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate everybody joining us. I see a lot of folks in here, so thank you guys all. We're switching it up a little bit this month. We try to do, we usually do these midday, but it was a suggestion of one of my webinar co-hosts that we move these to the evening time to get a lot of you very busy restoration business owners an opportunity to do this when you weren't being pulled away by adjusters or project managers or, homeowners or property owners there, right? So hopefully this works out really, really well. Chris, thank you for joining me and thanks for doing with me this month. We're going to be talking KPIs here. So we're going to be talking about numbers. The most successful clients that I work with, Chris, on the digital marketing side, these guys are dialed in. They know what their numbers are. And that's in every facet of their business, right? They know what their costs to deliver their services are. They know where their margins are. They probably know their P&L like the back of their hand, right? And that's really important as you scale the sales and the marketing components of your business is to really know those numbers. Chris, what are your thoughts on folks that don't necessarily manage their numbers as well?
Well, I have a kind of a nuanced answer. By the way, I see Chris Empey there. Hey, brother. It's been a while. So, one of the things that's been interesting about consulting is there is a reality where restorers, I see business owners can take their business a long way without caring about some of the fundamentals. It's like hustle, grit, great values, charismatic, good with people. You can take your business a long way, but that long way is different for every single business owner. For some people, they cap out at that 3-4 million mark, right? And some even before that. And then every now and then we see a unicorn that they've got a $10-15 million business and they do not know their core metrics. They don't know their KPIs. They couldn't even tell you necessarily what their net profit is. But they just know they have enough in the checking account.
That's not a great way to manage a business.
No, it is not. No, and of course, obviously, they're leaving lots of money and profit on the table when they do that. But it's a reality, and but at some point, all of us hit a ceiling, and some of you may be here because you feel like you've hit a ceiling, right? Where it's like you feel like you're not making as much money as you should be based on the amount of revenue you're doing, or you're not growing as fast as you feel like you should be doing for the opportunity in your market, or the amount you're spending, on your marketing. You feel like you should be getting more from it. Yeah. All of those are good reasons to dig in and really start addressing these fundamentals, which of course is knowing your numbers is a critical piece of that across the whole business, not just marketing, not just sales, but understanding your costs and everything else, right?
Like that. So guys, in terms of what we're going to cover today, we're going to cover the sales component and also the marketing KPIs. Now, these are not every KPI that you should be managing in your business. These are simply activity metrics specifically for your sales and your business development reps, and then some just top-level marketing metrics that you should keep an eye on in order to make sure that you're getting a good return on your ad spend, getting a good return on investment from your digital marketing there. So before we get started here, just want to give everybody a little heads up. We want you guys' attention. So what we ask is like, hey, man, I know you got stuff going on. It's the end of your workday or the evening there, but let's silence some of those distractions, because I think between Chris and myself, we're looking to deliver a lot of value for you guys this evening. And if you can give us the next 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how long-winded I am, this could really be a game changer for your restoration business. So take your notes. We're going to record this. We're going to share it with everybody that's attending tonight. But pay attention. Hopefully you guys get a couple of good nuggets. In terms of why we're here, well, for me, it's most restoration companies are guessing at their numbers. I'm sure you've had a new client come into Floodlight that you asked them simple questions about the metrics in their business, Chris, and they didn't have a clue, right?
Yep.
Well, what we want to do is help our restoration companies and help our audience today really stop guessing, start tracking, and this will help you ultimately scale the business faster. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Clinton James. I host a little podcast called the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. I'm also the Chief Marketing Officer with Water Restoration Marketing. We're a digital marketing agency that services specifically the restoration industry. I've got about 8 years working exclusively with restoration companies, and our agency right now services over 130 restoration companies across the country. I'm really focused in on marketing KPIs, right? I want to make sure that my clients' phones are not only ring, but I also want to make sure that they understand where those calls are coming from and what kind of return they're getting when they put that money in the marketing machine there. So that's me. Chris, give them a little insight on you.
Yeah. So I used to be an insurance agent, and I've owned some other small businesses, and I've been in the industry now for going on 12 years. Co-own and run Floodlight Consulting Group. I also am the co-host of the Head, Heart, and Boots podcast. And then most recently, after we created this slide deck, I became an owner and the chief sales officer for FP Restoration in Florida, a fast-growing commercial heavy restoration company down there in the Florida market. So
I love that. I'm a big fan of the podcast. I listen. I've had the pleasure of having you on my podcast, so I hope that this goes as well as that podcast interview.
That was fun, man. Yeah.
But stepping into this new role as an owner and chief sales officer for FP, you're going to be talking tonight about a lot of the things that you're going to be implementing, a lot of the metrics that you're going to be measuring for your sales team down there in Florida. Let's talk a little bit about the power of KPIs in sales, right? Why simple, repeatable benchmarks really make a difference. And you've got a great, very simple framework for activities to measure for your sales team. So we're going to go through that. Why don't you take it away, Chris? Walk us through this.
Yeah. And then later we're going to talk about some more kind of high level strategic things around sales before we're finished. But I think, my first year in restoration, I gotta tell you, it was pretty disorienting. And for those of you that are on the call that have come from other industries like me, like I came from insurance, and I was accustomed to a very specific sales process. Like, for example, I sold life insurance in addition to auto insurance and all this kind of stuff. I own my own agency, and there was a very defined process for selling. And so not only for myself, but my salespeople that worked for me, there was a very specific way I trained them. Customer walked through the door, we dial for dollars and get people on the phone, and we had specific things we would say. And then at the end of it, they would say yes or no, and we knew if we made the sale or not. Well, in this industry, we don't really know if we made the sale until the phone rings with a damage event, right? And so it makes it very difficult to manage salespeople in that environment, in particular, because it makes it difficult to hold them to, say, a quota, right? So some of you maybe had corporate sales jobs before you started your restoration company, and you'd have a quota where it's like, hey, I need to sell X amount of revenue per month or per quarter, per year. But again, you had a defined sales process. So it's like, I know if my target's $2 million in total sales, I need to make X number of calls because it takes X number of calls to get X number of sales meetings. And then I know my closing percentage, and then boom, I hit my number. You're right. It's like a hustle game.
Yeah.
But in this business, is it kind of that? Yes. And over time, can we develop enough historical data that we can start to predict our results based on our activity? Absolutely. Yeah. But it starts with us religiously executing on a baseline level of activity. And that's where we get the 55 and 1. 55 and 1, and I want to unpack what this is. First of all, it's a baseline activity level. And here's what we all have to face at some point in our life, and this is true of us as well as it is for our employees, the salespeople that work for us. Some of us are more talented than others.
Isn't that the truth?
And I'll be honest, like my gift is I have the gift of gab, is what my mom used to say when I was growing up. I'm a talker and I'm a socializer. And so I have a very high closing percentage. If I can talk to somebody, and this has always kind of been true, if anything, what's limited me in my career is just making a whole bunch of sales and resting on my laurels and like enjoying the satisfaction of how great I did. And so over time, I've had to develop grit and discipline to keep that flywheel spinning, because when I talk to people, things happen. And you guys may have salespeople like that. But there's different levels of talent, and people have different kinds of skills that they're bringing to the role. Some of them are going to have to make more calls, talk to more people to create the results you're looking for. And so the 55 and 1 is really a baseline. Sometimes we're going to need to, you're going to have a rep that needs to do 100 fresh contacts a week. Okay. So here's the 55 and 1. 50 is for fresh contacts. And the whole idea behind fresh contacts and how we want to define them is these are new business touches. These are not route stops, although they could be if you're, and here's how they could be. Okay. So I think everybody's familiar with route marketing, right? Like insurance agents, plumbers, property management offices, or community managers at apartment complexes. Traditionally, we've all sold in that fashion. Well, if I'm doing route stops, I might have stopped at a property 4 or 5 times previously, but maybe every time I've stopped in, I end up talking to the leasing manager because they're the only person in the front office. Well, the reality is, if I'm going to get that apartment complex to start sending me business, eventually I'm going to probably have to talk to the maintenance person on site. I'm going to need to talk to the community manager, the property manager. And so those contacts are critical. And if I haven't met them yet, even though I might have stopped at that property, dropped in on it 20 times previously, if the 21st time I end up getting to chat it up with the community manager / property manager, different companies call them different things, the decision maker generally, that's a fresh contact. That's somebody new that I've not yet connected with, and frankly, an important stakeholder that I've got to connect with. Okay, so that's the idea with fresh contacts. It's not somebody I've talked to 14 times. It's somebody that I'm talking to for the first time. It's new blood. It's pumping, fresh opportunity into the pipeline, so to speak. Now, there's different things that I count as fresh contacts. So this is a great time for you to pull out your pen and take notes on this. Okay, because I'm not going to give you a ton of information, but it's all going to be critical that you can go use with your team tomorrow, next week, et cetera. Okay. So what counts as a fresh contact? Well, obviously a cold call. And when I say cold call, now a lot of people that come from like financial advising or something in a previous life or insurance, you might be thinking dialing for dollars. That's not what I mean. I'm talking old school, where a cold call is knocking on a door and going through a door of somebody you haven't met, a business, et cetera. A common phrase in cold calling and direct selling is every door, every floor. And that's a great standard to teach your people, right? Because if you're trying to grow in commercial, for example, it never hurts to knock on a door that may not hold opportunity. And what I mean is, like, one of the things I coach my sales reps to do is to hit a strip mall. And a strip mall is not inherently a high propensity loss environment, right? You might have like a bookstore, a coffee shop, a nail salon, maybe an insurance office. An insurance office, we want to meet them, right? But you might have like a hat shop, right? And some retail stuff that's not going to hold a high propensity for water damage events or fire damage. But what do all those little shops in that little strip mall have in common? They have a landlord that owns the whole strip, right? And so I teach my people, when you're building your book of business, you're building your sales pipeline, hit it, especially unless you don't want commercial, okay, right? Then we focus on insurance agents, plumbers, and right. But if we want commercial, every door, every floor, right? Explore every opportunity, because not only that, like if we go in, like those of you who are in urban settings, downtown, like I used to work a lot in downtown Portland, Oregon, okay? And super dense, big high rises. And you go into those places and there's a lot of very rando kind of businesses, but everybody in a commercial business knows someone. And then every building you walk into has a building manager, potentially a chief engineer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So cold calls and drop-ins are the most powerful way to build your business and to find opportunity. Another analogy that I love is just turning over rocks. I want to turn over every rock because I don't know what's underneath it. I never know who knows who. Okay.
Now, Chris, when you're managing a sales team in the restoration space, how are you keeping track that they're doing this activity, right? Are you having them capture that information in a CRM? Are they doing it old school where they just keep a list or a Google sheet that has the places that they stopped and the day that they stopped and who the contact is that they made? Like, what do you feel like for the restoration company? Because there's people in our audience right now that are at all different stages, right? Maybe there's a guy that's an owner-operator. He's got a handful of people, a business development rep, doesn't use one of these big fancy, CRMs right now. How are you managing that activity? How are you keeping track of that activity for your sales team?
Yeah. So I'm going to just kind of be agnostic as far as it goes with like CRM. A CRM could simply be a Google sheet, right? Within your company's Google apps, right? Or a spreadsheet if you're a Microsoft weirdo. No, kidding. Or if you've got Albi or Accelerate or Dash or whatever, okay? Here's what I coach my reps to do, because you don't want to have a whole bunch. One, I don't want to slow my rep down unnecessarily.
Okay.
And two, I don't want a bunch of junk contacts in whatever CRM system or job management software that I have, right? And so, chances are, like if I go cold call a bookstore, they're probably not a real prospect, right? I mean, what's the propensity? If the fire suppression system goes off in that strip mall in the bookstore, who's actually going to call it in?
Sure.
Right? It's going to be the landlord, not the bookstore. They're not a real prospect. Okay. But I want them to track that fresh contact, because that's a leading activity that I want to measure. And so I know this sounds kooky, but I'm a little bit old school on this. I have my team keep a tick sheet, just a little, this kind of thing. Okay. In their car forever, when they're out doing their cold calls, they are carrying around that notebook and they just have the date, right? And the day of the week. And they just make little hash marks every single fresh contact they have. Now, can they lie and pencil whip it? Yes. But over a relatively short period of time, their activity is either going to reflect progress. They're either going to be able to describe to me the contacts they're making and conversations they're getting to, or they're not. And then I'll know they're just pencil whipping their reports, right?
Right.
But so I have them keep track of every fresh contact on their tick sheet. And then when they get into a meaningful conversation with a prospect, which I train them on, right? Who is an actual potential user, right? Or to report a loss, then they go into my contact management system. They go into the spreadsheet, they go into Accelerate as a new contact profile, and then I can start nurturing that relationship in subsequent visits. Okay. Right. So that's drop-ins or cold calls. Okay. Now, again, I just want to reiterate that I might cold call the same business multiple times, and I might get several fresh contacts in there. So that's okay. So don't come down on your sales rep if they're reporting that they or you look in their like GPS, or some of you micromanagers are like, man, why do they keep going to that same strip mall? You've been there 14 times. What's the deal? The reality is, in this business, it's normal for them to need to get buy-in from 3 or 4 or 5 stakeholders inside that account to ensure that they're going to get the phone call. Not only is it normal, it's generally essential. And so that's just one other little tip I'll give you here as we hang on this is, if your rep only they're like, oh, I just got this new apartment complex, they're going to try us out next time. And you start asking some questions, and the only person they've ever talked to there is the community manager, the head honcho, the head cheese. It's very unlikely you're actually going to get the next call.
Yeah.
Because who has a 50-50 chance of calling in that loss? The maintenance person or manager or supervisor. they undoubtedly have a cell phone with a pocket contact of the Serve Pro guy they called last time, or the Puro Clean, or the Bell4, or the XYZ Restoration that they used previously. And so if you've not made contact with them and given them a reason to call you, you ain't getting that call. So it's necessary for us to have multiple contacts.
Okay, I like that. All right, so you have two more. What's the second thing that you're counting as a fresh contact?
LinkedIn connections. Yes. So an accepted and responded to LinkedIn connection. LinkedIn is a powerful way to make first contact with prospects. Yeah. And it's what's powerful about it is all operations leaders, let's be honest. Some of you, I mean, I know a couple owners on here. Owners don't want to meet with salespeople. Operations leaders do not want to meet with salespeople until they have to. Let's be real. Unless they have a problem with a vendor, or they've got a cash crunch and they're trying to save money on their vendor costs, or blah, blah, blah. Right. Owners don't want to meet with salespeople, right? And so they tend to be resistant anytime we're trying to grab time from them. And so LinkedIn is great because it's very low friction. It's low time commitment for them to accept a connection request from you. But now you've just kind of warmed the pot as a sales rep. So an accepted connection request that you replied to, right? So that you get the fresh contact for your daily activity once you respond. And I have a whole way I train people what to say, in that response thing. But so that's one.
All right. So we've got cold calls and drop-ins. We've got LinkedIn connections. And then the last one on here that you consider to be fresh contact.
So cold email outreach. I used to totally dog on emails because I hate getting emails, and we all have a gazillion of them, and it's overwhelming for most owners and entrepreneurs and operational leaders. But here's where it really makes sense a lot, in particular, is with property management. But it's true really of any commercial drop-in. How many times do we go in, or our sales rep goes in, they go to the front desk. Hey, I'd love to meet with Sally, the maintenance director. Oh, Sally's busy, but here's their card. And then as a sales rep, I'll be honest, I'd take it because I felt obligated to, since they showed me the card, and then it would get lost in my passenger seat in my car. Because I'm like, nobody's ever going to care if I email them anyways.
Sure.
But an interesting thing that I started testing when I got into this industry with my sales team is to have them send an email. And I want to give you an extra tip here. That cold email outreach, here's what it sounds like. Subject heading, you want to quote the gatekeeper, the front desk person that pointed you to their card. Hey, I came in, you were in, Sally said you were in a meeting, but told me to shoot you an email. Okay, so Sally told me to shoot you an email is my subject heading.
So you're taking whoever the person was that you met with, that gatekeeper,
exactly.
You're putting that person's name. Okay.
That's exactly right. Okay. And then the body of the email is really simple. I'm not selling, because they'll dismiss it right away. They open it, it looks like some 3-paragraph sales pitch. None of us like it in those emails, do we? No. Right. And so it's very simple. It's, hey, Samantha, I understand you're the community manager. Sally told me to reach out to you. I just want to make sure you had our scope of work in case you happen to need our kind of service before we end up meeting. And I bullet point water, fire, mold, storm damage, asbestos abatement, whatever, carpet cleaning, whatever it is. And then I leave, and here's my cell phone number if you have any questions or if you need service. Chris. I look forward to meeting you in person at some point. Very low pitch, not salesy. It's just like, hey, just in case you need something before we meet, here's all my stuff.
All right. So the fresh contact is not you sending the email; it's getting a response from.
And it's getting a response. So that's what I have them save that cold email as a template, and then they just do this at the end of the day to the 5 or 10 business cards they have. If they get a response, that's a buying signal.
Sure.
And now a warm connection, and then I can count it. So it's replies to that cold email template I just described.
All right. So going back to the 55 and 1, so we've got 55 or 50 fresh contacts a week.
Yep.
The second thing you on here is 5 scheduled sales meetings. So talk a little bit
5 scheduled sales meetings. And here I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We all kind of know what it is. I want to get a prospect's time. I want to get some commitment, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of different ways to do this, but one of the things I've had that I've had a lot of success with, and so have the sales reps I work with, is brevity. Brevity is king today, especially post-COVID. Let's be honest, most business now is done via Zoom and stuff like this because operational leaders have discovered it's way more time efficient just meet with people via Zoom. But there's something special, especially in our industry. It's a very physical industry. Most people will not send you work until they've met you in person. I've just found that to be true. Much higher closing percentage, accelerates through the sales pipeline when you meet somebody face to face and shake their hand, right? It's old school. And that's how people like to do business in a physical business like ours. And so my suggestion is to use brevity in your approach. And you don't need a ton of these. But you need to have a cadence of 5. Now, here's one other thing too. I have a thing that I teach teams, sales teams. It's called 5 by Friday. This benefits not only the company, obviously, because we get our whole team in a regular cadence of having 5 sales meetings scheduled every single week. But for the sales rep, for those of you on the call that might be sales reps, it is one of the best feelings in the world as a professional salesperson to go into your weekend knowing you already have 5 sales meetings scheduled for the next week. So for you owners, this is one of the best disciplines you can motivate your team to get in place. It's going to take you 6-8 weeks to get them locked in on it, right? You may have to issue threats as well. But it's one of those things to motivate them towards because it allows them to enjoy their weekend. I've been a sales rep in some form for the last 25 years. Oh my God, I am that old. And oh my gosh. And I can tell you this, in the seasons of my career when I've had this locked in, it's been the lowest stress and most successful and productive seasons of my career. Because when we don't have stuff teed up for the following week, what do we do as salespeople? And you owners who are the salesperson for your business, if you've got no new business activity lined up for the following week, you feel like shit because I hope that's okay. You have to bleep that out there, Clint.
I have no problem with
because and this is true of a lot of other operational disciplines, right? When we go into our weekend with loose ends and we don't have things teed up, one-on-ones with our staff, whatever it is that drives our business forward, then we're scrambling on a Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening because we feel guilty and we feel afraid that we're going to lose traction with our team and we're going to show up and look like a ding-dong in front of our team. And so we end up stressing the whole weekend. So this is a really great framework, 5 by Friday. It's a great, and that just means that by the time they leave on Friday, they've already got at least 5 sales meetings scheduled for the upcoming week. Okay.
All right. So
yeah,
go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. Finish your thought.
Well, and so the last thing I want to say about brevity, it's perfectly acceptable to have a 15-minute stand-up. I use this term a lot. I highly suggest it. Don't ask people for a lunch. Don't ask them for a happy hour. Listen, fewer and fewer people drink, number one, and fewer people want to drink these days. But they'll say yes sometimes. And so I'm just like, you know what? Most operational leaders don't actually want a friend. They want to solve problems or they want to save money in their operation and their business. Brevity is king. They're more likely to say yes when we say, hey, you know what? I'm going to be in your neck of the woods this next week, dropping by my client, doing a post-job follow-up. I wanted to swing by and just grab a quick stand-up with you. We can just have a quick stand-up in your lobby. Are you game? I'd love to put faces to names. We connected on LinkedIn. I'm sure you're busy. Can we do a quick stand-up?
That's so non-committal. I mean, it's very easy to say yes to that as a whether it's a facility manager, or property owner, whoever it may be. So I like that. So we've got our 50 fresh contacts a week. We've got our 5 scheduled meetings. Let's try to have those meetings on the books for the following week by that Friday, right? So that you can enjoy time with your friends and your family and actually
exactly right.
And have be a good mind space on the weekend. And then the final one you have on here is one networking function. So give me some examples on that.
Yeah. So I think all of us. No, we need a network. Network is leverage, right? It's where I can go and spend an hour, say at a chamber of commerce greeters function or a business after hours chamber event or a BNI group. Yeah. You got to be careful about BNI groups, in my experience. there's good ones and there's not so good ones. The bigger, the better. The more, again, it's the more leverage I have. If I can spend an hour, and BNI groups are longer, they're typically 90 minutes, I think, or closer to 2 hours. It's a big commitment. Not only that, because you've BNI groups, here's the caution with BNI groups. If you want to get leads, you have to give them. If you're a taker for too long, people are going to stop giving you leads. And it's difficult. I have always shied away from BNI groups because I don't have the mind space to be giving a lead to the flower shop gal and giving a lead to the attorney guy and like doing the one-to-ones that they require. I don't know, maybe it's my personality, but it's a big time suck. And unless you're really good at it, you're often not going to get a ton of leads. Some of the bigger, more active groups you can. I have clients and their salespeople, some that harvest a lot of stuff from it, but just be careful with that. But here's the other thing I want to caution you with on the one networking function. Is it okay for a sales rep to routinely have 3? Yes. I loved selling through association groups, networking, conferences, industry meetups. I really liked that environment, that group environment. And I did well with it. I always scheduled meetings, and that should be the target of your sales rep. We're not going there for the free drink tickets and the free food. And I'm not joking, actually. I've had sales reps on my teams and my clients' teams that love to network. And they're the chatty Cathy or the jolly Jim that they go to 5 or 10 networking events. They're always signing up for every networking event they can go to. And what is their revenue? Often very modest. They're not paying for themselves. They're not creating a great return on investment, but everybody loves them. You as an owner go drop in, you go to a chamber meeting with them and everybody knows them. But they're just chatting it up with soccer mom and soccer dad chatter. So you really got to watch for that as an owner. If your sales rep is spending very little time doing cold calls and a lot of time doing networking, unless they're good at it. Okay. And then let them network as much as they want if they're bringing the business in. But that's why I say have a cadence of 1, maybe 2 networking functions that they're prioritizing every week consistently.
All right. So for the audience, write this down. This is a great framework for you to use and some very key metrics, some KPIs that you can put in place, especially for that new sales rep that maybe has some experience selling in other industries, but hasn't really worked the streets for a restoration company. So I like that. I like that a lot. Let's talk about some of these tools the BI tools
I'll be quick on this.
Sure.
I'll be quick on this. So this is actually something I'm getting ready to do at FP. So please steal the playbook. Where there are these amazing tools where I can find out anything about any building in my market, right? So if I go cold call an office building, I can go into one of these tools like Yardi, CoStar, ZoomInfo, Reonomy. I think we're going to go with Reonomy. Yeah. It's $5,000 a year. It's very expensive. So you have to have a certain scale for this to make sense for your business. Okay. But I can go in there and I can put in that address. It'll give me all associated building management contacts. It'll tell me who is the active property manager that manages that property. It'll tell me who the owner is. It'll also bring up and tell me every other building in my market that is also owned by that same ownership LLC entity or group. It'll tell me every other building in that community as well that is managed by the same property management company. And it'll give me contacts of the various property managers, a chief engineer that's associated with that building. It scrapes a bunch of different databases. It is rich. But the other thing it'll also tell me is square footage. Okay. So how do we use this for those of you that have a bigger team or you have an appetite for investing in this kind of data and this kind of approach? Well, what's cool about this, years ago when Brandon and I were first getting into commercial, we had a successful commercial rep tell us that she always forecasts by using $1 per square foot annually. So what she knew is that if she knew how many square feet of building she had under relationship, she could over time project what kind of revenue she was going to get off that book. Now, obviously that included her following up and sending gifts and doing all the normal stuff we do to nurture the relationship, but it gives you something objective, an objective KPI to measure. So if you've got somebody who's done 5 ERPs for different buildings that total 5 million square feet, if you're in like an urban setting, you can reliably expect $5 million of annual revenue from that book of business.
So $1 per square foot. That's kind
annually.
of annually. Okay.
Annually, right? So the forecasting thing is huge, and it just helps you get a better sense of, well, gosh, if you've got a bunch of ERPs or MSAs that you have a sales rep that locked in and they're nurturing it well and all that stuff, well, at some point it's like, man, let's hire another sales rep. Let's get another person out in the field because we know this is going to gen some business. Okay. So the other thing too, though, is it helps you establish what your account penetration is in commercial, because I can't tell you how many companies and sales reps I see that are like, oh yeah, I got this new apartment complex.
Okay.
And they start sending us work, and we get so excited about the work that this one apartment complex sends us that we don't ever do the research to find out, holy shit, they have 13 other complexes associated with the same property management company.
All right, so we're going to talk account penetration versus new logos. You want to explain the difference of the two to our audience here?
Yeah, new logos is a new fancy term that I adopted because I just like it. It just means it's a fresh new business that we haven't done business with yet. A new account portfolio with a property management company, a new cluster of senior living homes. It's Frontier Management was one of my first big. They had 30 locations in the state of Oregon, senior living customers. And I first got one called the Oaks at Lebanon. Well, if to the uninitiated, I think, oh, well, they're just kind of a one-off business, local owners, whatever. No way. No, there's very few locally owned senior living homes. Same with hotels. Most of them are part of groups, right? So I plug the name or the address of that building into Reonomy or CoStar, and I quickly find out, whoa, there's 8 other buildings associated with this one, sister companies or whatever. And then I can start to track a percentage for my sales rep of, hey, that senior living group that you took on, well, we only have 5.5% penetration. Let's go make sure we get all the rest of that opportunity versus let's go find another group and start selling another brand. Okay. So new logos, brand new business. But once I get that brand new business, then I want to gauge how many of the different buildings and opportunities I've gotten of that logo, of that brand. Does that make sense?
100%.
New logos versus getting as much maximization from that account as I can get.
And you've already created a strong enough relationship to secure that percentage that you have there, right? So why not leverage that relationship, not have your sales rep leverage that relationship to get more business out of that already, acquired account?
That is the best part of it, guys. And some of you are already sitting on a gold mine of business that you don't even realize is there, but you're not a sales rep in those additional buildings because you can name drop, hey, we work at, we've done 3 jobs at Whispering Winds, one of your other sister properties. I'd love to talk to you more about who you've used in the past and get right into a sales conversation with almost zero resistance because you're already servicing their portfolio.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so let's go through practical versus strategic metrics. Tactical, that's what you talked about earlier, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then strategic is more the second set of metrics that you gave us for penetration, square footage, and ultimately being able to use those numbers to forecast revenue in the future.
That's exactly right. Start with the activity. If you're not sure what to do, start with the 55 and 1 and ratchet it up. Ratchet it up to 75, 100 to 1 until you start to see the phone. You start to hear the phone ring and start to see the results of that. Then we can start to drill in and we can start to maximize, right? But you don't optimize until the pipeline is flowing. Focus on activity first. Once it's flowing and you're happy with some of the volume that's happening, then notch it down and start to say, okay, let's look at these clients. Are there other sister locations we can exploit and start drilling deeper and deeper and deeper?
Okay, so before we leave the topic of sales KPIs, because you and the Floodlight team do a lot of ongoing coaching and development for the restoration companies you work with, their sales teams. What are the 3 metrics that you're looking at from an activity standpoint for those reps that ultimately are what you find that move the needle, right? Is it new contacts? Is it going to be those meetings? And is it going to be the networking? Is it the 55 and 1? Is that really what you're going to look at on a week-to-week basis to make sure that you're getting the activity necessary to move the needle?
Yeah. So we really hover around the 55 and 1 metric, just really just really pushing that consistent activity. But then the other two things too that really drive the pipeline acceleration, meaning going from a prospect to a client to a first notice of loss, ERPs and MSAs. And I teach people how to combine the ERP and get assigned MSA when they deliver the ERP. And so we really pace on ERPs. I think a good number for a sales rep is to land and deliver 2 ERPs per month.
Okay.
So essentially to deliver 2 ERPs per month and on a rolling basis, right? And it takes, depending on the size of the property and whatnot, that's a small enough number that they can actually do the property walks, ask the questions, fill in the data on the ERP. I recommend restorationerp.com, by the way.
Jeff is awesome.
Yeah, Jeff, great. It's a great platform. It's simple. It's easy to learn. It's inexpensive. And so that's a great metric that will drive results in calls.
And he is doing some fascinating stuff on the AI side. We had him, I interviewed him. We're dropping a podcast with him, I believe, next week. So I'm really excited about that. All right. So we talked about the sales part. I want to kind of drill into marketing and those KPIs, because you'd be shocked at how many restoration companies that I get an opportunity to talk to that are leaving a marketing agency. And I ask them about very simple numbers and they have no idea. They say, I know I spent $5,000 a month. I know I spent $10,000 a month with them and I just wasn't getting enough business. Well, what does that mean? Like, what does that actually look like? So I want to give you some top line KPIs that every restoration company can track, whether you're using a really advanced CRM or if you're just tracking it on Google Sheets. Like, this is simple stuff that anyone can track. The first one's very easy. Cost per lead, right? Because we know restoration companies, especially when they're going out and they're chasing residential business, they're probably using a lot of different lead generation tools, right? So they could be doing SEO, and that will ultimately improve their organic rankings, and they're going to start getting calls and on-site visits and jobs, but they also could spend money on leads, right? So that could be a 33-mile radius, right? That could be Angie's leads. That could be Google local service ads. That could be pay-per-click, right? You need to separate each one of those marketing channels and be able to manage the actual cost per lead for each one of those channels. You don't want that data aggregated together, right? I'm spending $5,000 on all of these lead generation tools and I'm getting $50,000 out of it. No, you want to segment it so that you know based on each one of those things exactly what your cost per lead is going to be. Now, one of the ways that we make that easy for our clients is we use tracking numbers on different assets, right? So their Google business profile might have a tracking number. Their website might have a tracking number. We might be running an ads campaign that has an alternative tracking number. And we keep track of that through a platform. We use call tracking metrics, but it makes it very easy for us to run reports and show clients exactly which calls and exactly which jobs are coming from which lead source. And then we can track, hey, I know we spent $5,000 this month on pay-per-click. I know we spent $2,500 this month on local service ads. And then we can really identify exactly what that cost per lead is. So no matter what lead service that you're paying for, if you're paying for leads, track each one of those individually and identify exactly what your cost per lead is going to be. When you get a new client showing up, do your clients, are they usually familiar with what their cost per lead is?
Almost never.
Okay. Well, this is something anybody can do, right? So track it. I don't care if you put it on a Google sheet, right? That's something that's really, really important. The next is going to be lead to job conversion rate, right? Because you can pay for all the leads in the world, and we all know that not all lead sources are created equal, right? So, like, have you when you've worked with restoration companies in the past, have they used the 33-mile radius? Have they used Angie's leads, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And they all have differing opinions on which ones are good and which ones are bad. I can walk through the good and bad of every single pay-per-lead service out there. And I have plenty of clients that continue to use a lot of these pay-per-lead services because they track it and it's delivering a decent return on investment. But another important KPI to look at is your cost or your lead to job conversion rate, right? Because if it takes me 10 leads to generate one job, the problem is I have manpower that's dedicated to working those 10 leads. And if I'm only getting one job out of it, might actually lower the value of that job to me because I spent X number of hours working those leads, right? Does that make sense, Chris?
Yeah. 100%.
Okay. All right. So another marketing KPI that we like looking at is customer acquisition cost. How often are you talking to your clients about CAC?
CAC is something that comes up quite a lot because, I mean, ultimately it's going to it's going to affect the profitability of the job that we're acquiring, right? I mean, it's going to potentially, and in a lot of cases it does, eats into their gross margin and the amount of money they're actually making on that work that they ultimately acquire, you know?
I think a lot of companies stop short of actually finding out what their true customer acquisition cost is, because they look at it as, oh, I just paid for this lead. This lead turned into this job. Well, there are always some additional things. So it's not just it's the total sales and the marketing expense.
It's a fully loaded cost, right? So if we have a spiff we pay a technician for landing a job, right? You want to figure that into that CAC, right?
100%. 100%. What do you think a healthy, and let's do it based on a percentage. Do you traditionally point your clients at a percentage number for what their customer acquisition cost should be on, let's say, mitigation work?
So I've always been on the sales side, which the distinction between sales and marketing, but I always try to keep our total sales cost 10% or less. Okay. And that includes the cost of my sales rep if I'm paying them a commission and a salary, right? I also think about that in terms of if we're paying a commission to our technicians who collect a work authorization, et cetera, is I want to keep my total cost of sales under 10%.
Everyone says, like the coaches that I meet in this industry, they all like that 10% number. I want to push back on this for a second.
Sure.
Are you willing to say that the new restoration company that's just looking to get market penetration, just looking to get there, should they be willing to spend a little bit more to acquire customers initially, especially as they do more things in the community that's going to bring more opportunities to them?
Without question. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm reading Alex Duda's Restoration Millionaire, right? And he talks a little bit about customer acquisition costs and how a new restoration company, hey, they need to be a little bit higher on that number. They need to be spending to acquire clients with the ultimate goal of driving down that customer acquisition cost over time.
Yep.
All right. Next one I've got here is call volume, right? We want to see growth from a digital marketing standpoint. What I'm looking for a client that I'm doing SEO services for is form submissions are great, right? For non-emergency services. You're rarely going to find somebody that's standing in 2 inches of water in their kitchen that's going to take the time to fill out a form and wait for somebody to call them back, right? Yeah. If your main focus is to get emergency water jobs, fire and smoke, things like that. Those are emergency services, and people aren't filling out forms and sitting there patiently waiting for somebody to call back. So one of the things that clients should look at, especially if they're using a company to do search engine optimization, knowing that is kind of a long game there, right, is after 2 or 3 months, start paying attention to call volume. Start paying attention to call volume month over month, right? And I tell my clients from an SEO standpoint, when we start tracking call volume, we're looking at for an increase of anywhere from 5 to 10% month over month, right? Now, we do understand that restoration it's not a completely seasonal business, but you will have your peaks and your valleys based on what Mother Nature's doing outside. So a lot of times you don't just want to look at growth month over month, but you want to look at this October versus last October. Right? As your campaigns mature from a paid ad standpoint, or as your campaigns mature from an SEO standpoint, you need to be able to track the amount of volume that you're getting. Because sometimes you'll see that volume is increasing, but the job number is not increasing, right? And you've got to dissect that, right? It could be the quality of the person that you have answering the phone.
Call intake. Yeah. Big problem. Yeah.
Call intake. It could be the quality of the person that you're sending out to sell that job. Right. You want to track that, because if you're sending a technician out to emergency water jobs and he's closing less than 75% of those opportunities, is that a red flag right there? Is that somebody that's probably in need of coaching and development?
We call that closing conversion rate. Yep.
What do you usually see? And this is on the residential side. What do you guys usually expect from somebody going out to be first on site for, let's say, a mitigation opportunity?
For mitigation water damage event, 85+%.
That's what I was hoping that you'd say. We track this across the board for all of our clients, right? Because we know what calls we generate. We use an AI agent that goes in after the fact and analyzes the call transcription to let us know, hey, this was a lead, or they collected address information. They're going for an on-site visit. And we look to see which of our clients are actually turning those on-site visits into actual jobs, right? Yep. And we tell our clients 75% is the minimum, right? If you've got somebody going out for a mitigation opportunity, emergency water damage, and they're not closing at least 75% of those on-site visits, there's probably a coaching and development opportunity that's that you should pursue with that person there. So,
100%.
Another one I've got on here. This one's pretty straightforward. Return on ad spend, right? There are customers spending. I've got clients that spend $10,000, $20,000 a month on just a PPC campaign, right? And it's really important that you tie every call that comes into your restoration business to a lead source, right? Some people will try to do that manually, right? Have the woman that answers the phone say, hey, how'd you hear about us, right? Oh, I found you on Google. Well, what does that mean, right? Because Google's got a bunch of places that they can find you. You could be running local service ads, right? They could have clicked on one of your sponsored links for pay-per-click. They could have found you in the maps, could have found you in the organic listings, right? That's why I feel really strongly about using tracking numbers, right? So I get some pushback from some of the folks that are interested in working with us because they're like, hey, our phone number's on the shirt. Our phone number's on the service vehicle, right? Our phone numbers are on all the cards. I said, that's great. That's not going away. They're going to call that number and they're still going to get you. But for the digital marketing efforts that me and my agency are doing, I need to see what tangible results that we're generating. And I don't trust Sally, the person that's answering the phone, to get the real information about where that lead potentially came from.
Never trust Sally, because it's the homeowner and the person calling in you can't trust. They don't remember. They won't remember where they got it. And oftentimes too, there's other validating triggers that, they saw the LSA ad, but then they also glance at your Google My Business profile right. And so you never know exactly if you're trusting the caller.
Yeah. Well, with tracking numbers, I think it gives you the clearest path to attribution, right? Yep. Because you're right. Somebody could have seen you post on Facebook 3 months ago. They recognize the business name for some reason when they do a Google search on their cell phone because they're standing in 2 inches of water. They immediately go to that local service ad because it's got a picture and it's got your business name on it, right? So it all kind of works in correlation, but you've got to do the best job possible in terms of attribution. And I feel like call tracking numbers are the easiest way for a restoration company to do that.
Absolutely.
The last one I've got on here, kind of a bonus, what we've tried to start tracking is the average value by source, right? So what would you guess the average mitigation job is across the country right now? I would put it probably somewhere in the $4,500 to $6,500 range, depending on where you are in the country.
Yeah, that's what I would have guessed, yeah.
But lead sources, you can actually see a significant difference in the total value of the mitigation part of the work based on what lead source generated it, right? So we want to track not only where the lead came from, but we have our clients report back the value through a database there, the value of the job that they got. So we can go in over time, not going to do it after a month, but after 6 months, after 12 months, we can go in and we can say, hey, all the calls that came through your Google business profile, the average value of those jobs was significantly higher than the people that came in through these shared Angie's leads that you're buying, right? So why are we spending more money on that? Let's take that money that we're spending on those leads. Now, I'm not saying put all your eggs in one basket, right? You want to have as many poles in the water as possible when you're doing this kind of marketing. But I think I'm really firm believer that, hey, we want to look at how we're spending our ad spend across all of these different lead generations platforms and make sure that we are pointing it in the direction of the lead source that's going to give us the highest value opportunities there. Do you have any clients that are getting that granular with their tracking in terms of?
Yeah, absolutely. The ones that are working with you.
Well, they don't have a choice. We track all that stuff and it's super important.
I mean, we do. Some of our more sophisticated teams or also the other thing too, the ones that do are the ones that have been burned. They've discovered how much money they've been wasting because they weren't tracking that stuff,
I think that the better a restoration company can get their arms around the numbers, right, from a digital marketing standpoint, or just a marketing and a sales standpoint. I think the easier it is to pull the levers necessary to scale that business. And then ultimately, if your goal, because I talk to a lot of guys every single day, and the goal is not to leave a restoration company to the next generation, to their children. The goal is to find an exit ramp in the next 5 years, 10 years. They want to sell the business. And the better you know your numbers, the more valuable you are to PE or that roll-up group that's doing the acquisition. You guys have done due diligence, right? So does that impact the client's multiple? Is their ability to articulate their numbers and KPIs?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are the kind, and for your team, for you to have a person on your team, not you, right? That is skilled in tracking these things. It absolutely affects the value of the company.
Okay.
Without, yeah, for sure.
How, when, because you've done due diligence for a few
We have,
restoration companies that have gone through that process.
yeah.
I know they're doing due diligence, looking at P&Ls, looking at QuickBooks and things like that. But are they looking at like sales scorecards and things like that before
Uh,
they
y- Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so many things that a PE company is looking for, not the least of which is repeatability. They're looking at your business and they're saying, okay, is there a bona fide system in here that has returned above average results over an extended period of time that we can then buy the business and then further optimize that system and expect to see at least as good results moving forward? Or is there a lot of haphazard, sometimes implemented processes that may or may not return the same results once we buy the business? I mean, that issue of repeatability and how systemized your business is and how data driven your business is, it could be the difference between a 4 multiple on earnings and a 5.5 multiple on earnings. Literally, we've seen this, in due diligence with companies.
So if you're in the audience today, you're listening to this or you're watching the recording on YouTube, ask yourself, do you know your numbers, right? And how much more valuable is your business going to be if and when you choose to exit the business, if you actually are tracking all of these things? And you do not have to, even if you're smaller and you don't have one of those advanced CRMs, they're simple things that you can do with Google Sheets to make sure that you're tracking this stuff on a regular basis. And if you're one of my clients, I'm going to give you all the tools in the world to track the marketing stuff. And I'm sure, Chris, you've got tools that you guys provide to the clients that you're coaching their sales team.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Finally, alignment. Marketing generates leads, right? That's the important thing. Sales is going to convert those leads, whether it's an inside salesperson, an outside salesperson, a business development rep, doesn't make a difference. By tracking all this stuff, you can really determine, what the ROI looks like, how your business is doing, how healthy it is. 5 and 1. I love that framework. I think everybody should be using. Heck, I might start using that in my digital marketing agency from an outreach standpoint, so we can get in front of more restoration companies so that we can deliver great results and generate business to help them grow. Some key takeaways, again, track your numbers, align sales and marketing, and then obviously forecast smarter. How much data does a business need on the commercial side before they can really start using that data to forecast out? Is it 12 months?
I think once we get through our first year, it gives us some kind of reliable indication of what we can expect the next year. Yeah.
Okay. I like that. All right. This is gone for an hour. I was planning on 45 minutes. Chris, man, I appreciate you sticking around. I know we've still got some folks on here. If anybody has any questions, you guys can drop them.
I'm happy to stay for a few minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Let's drop those in the chat. Or they might not have any questions because we just did a great job of providing so much explanation that there's no questions necessary here. So let me open this up and see if we've got some more questions in here. I don't see anything, or I don't know how to use this. Both of those could be true.
Or people are getting hungry.
That's true. That's true. All right. Chris, I want to give everybody an opportunity. Tell them a little bit about what Floodlight does and how you might be able to. Maybe they're not familiar with you and Floodlight. Tell them a little bit about what you can do for a restoration company to help kind of get them dialed in on their KPIs, their numbers, and help them with growth.
Yeah. So there's two ways to engage with us. We have some clients that will engage with us on both sides. We have sales partners that are fractional sales managers. We'll work with as little as one sales rep for $2,500 a month. We will literally function like a professional sales manager for them. We'll help them create a sales plan. We'll have weekly one-on-ones with them. We'll have a monthly owners meeting with you to report on their progress, get your feedback. We'll have a quarterly strategy meeting where we reevaluate based on the sales reps' results, how they're doing. And we'll also recommend, hey, man, look at the results. Should we hire a new rep? And then we'll participate in the hiring process, sit in on the interviews, and then ultimately onboard that sales rep for you as well. So it's a really great service. We have some clients that have 6 or 7 reps that we manage, and we have many small companies that are using us to manage their one sales rep, to nurture them, mentor them, develop their skill, and hold them accountable. And then we have ops partners, also $2,500 a month. Those ops partners coach and mentor. These are all past owners that are coaching and mentoring. The formal sessions, ad hoc access to them. We have a slew of operational sort of fundamentals that we take you through based on where the company's at. We work with companies as small as $1 million in revenue, and we have companies that are doing 30, 40 million in revenue. And our ops partners have a variety of experience as owners. They've sat in your seat. And so it's a great, not only is it a great sounding board to have somebody in your corner that you have access to with experience, but they're going to drive accountability in terms of leading change within your business. It's really neat. So whether you need an ops partner or a sales partner, just reach out to me and we can talk shop and see if one of those or both of those makes sense for your business.
I like that. If you guys want to book a call with the team over at Floodlight, you can scan that code or visit that URL. Again, if you're watching this on replay on YouTube, we're going to have a link directly to Chris's team in the description there. So for myself, again, in addition to doing these webinars and hosting the podcast, I also have a digital marketing agency called Water Restoration Marketing. So if you guys are in the market to find out a little bit more about marketing, digital marketing KPIs, to see if what you're doing right now is healthy, I'd love to schedule a call with you and my team to see if there's an opportunity for us to work together. So you can scan that code. You can visit waterrestorationmarketing.com/schedule. Chris, man, I appreciate you staying up so late. It's not super late for us because we're on the West Coast, but
I'm going out to tacos with the family after this. It's all good, man.
I love that.
Hey, I just want to say too, while we still have some people on, our clients have had great experience with you and your team, Clint.
And vice versa. We actually share a couple clients now, which is awesome. I'm really trying to make the shift from just being a digital marketing agency to being a growth partner for these restoration companies. And that means not only providing the services that I know I can do well for them, but also introducing them to folks like you and the team over at Floodlight that can coach them on the areas that are not our expertise. And I feel like if a restoration company just worked with us, like both of us, man, we can help scale their business. So
our team.
Awesome. Thank you everybody for jumping on today. I'm glad you guys got some value out of this. Thank you. I see all the comments in there. That's awesome.
Yeah, Raul, shoot me a LinkedIn message, dude. I'll tell you more about MSAs. Okay.
Awesome. I appreciate everybody. Chris, I appreciate you. We're going to put this slide deck available for you guys to download, and also the video, and everybody that attended tonight will get an email out to you guys so that you have that information. Chris, absolute pleasure, man. I really appreciate you sticking around and joining.
Same. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Yeah. See you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe, share, and also leave us a 5-star review. We'll be back with more interviews and discussions with restoration industry leaders really soon. In the meantime, if you're a restoration company looking to add more high-value water jobs, you can reach me and my team at waterrestorationmarketing.net. Again, that's waterrestorationmarketing.net. I look forward to hearing from you soon.